Hello, my name is Debbie Boone, and I want to welcome you to my podcast, The Bend, where we explore how successful people navigated the path and emerged in a better place when life threw them an unexpected twist. It's inspired by one of my favorite sayings: the bend in the road is not the end of the road unless you fail to make the curve. These conversations will hopefully help you and inspire you to embrace your personal bend and to flourish. I hope you enjoy it, and if you need help with your own personal navigation and you're in veterinary medicine, please feel free to reach out to me at Debbie Boone 2 Manage Vets Consulting. Enjoy the bend and be inspired by our wonderful guest. Welcome.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to The Bend. I apologize for the camera angle this morning. We had some technical difficulties, and so fortunately I have a friend, Clint Latham, who's here with us today, who is an IT professional, and I'm going to get a little advice from him probably after we finish our podcast.
That's right,
but,
yeah.
It's good to know people who know stuff, and that's the way I look at it. But I want to introduce Clint because he has just started a new business. And he says, with 2 senior Yorkies, he understands the need to have a trusted veterinarian to care for his family members. His goal is to uncover the mystery of data security for veterinarians across the country so they can focus on the most important thing, which is quality of care for 4-legged family members. While working and speaking with practices all across the country, Clint saw that there are a number of practices that don't realize the true value of their data until it's too late. He is passionate about helping to provide veterinary practices with clear guided paths through the technology landscape while being there to help them find the hidden dangers of cyber attacks. So I welcome you, Clint, and thank you for what you're doing, because I'm telling you what, I had a friend who was the victim of malware, and it completely locked down his entire database. And this was early when it first started to come out, ransomware. And so I know firsthand, a story about a veterinarian practice who was basically held hostage by, one of these hackers. So, I think it's an important thing. If we can't afford everything, at least we should afford this thing, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. I mean, it's good for me too, right? If you're going to afford anything, maybe you should afford me then,
That's right. Exactly right.
Yeah. Shameless self-promotion. Yeah.
Yeah. So this podcast, as you know, is about times when life throws us a curve. And you and I both have been through a couple of bends in the road here, and so far we haven't crashed. And
thank God.
Yeah. So tell me, other than like cybersecurity protection, when you were a kid, what did you want to do?
Interesting. I wanted to be a musician. Like I wanted to be a professional rock musician. And ironically, after my senior year into the first couple of years of college, I was in a punk rock band called Antic. We had some level of success. The shoe company, the Vans, the shoe company, they put on this thing called the Vans Warped Tour. And at the time it was a really big deal. And so we got put on the small stage. So there's one Ernie Ball guitar strings. They had the Ernie Ball stage. And so we got put on the Ernie Ball stage. And so our opening kind of initial tour was playing the Vans Warped Tour in Denver. And then we were slated to do the West Coast. And long story short, our van blew up in Las Vegas after Vegas. And yeah, it was this whole nightmare about how to get home. And we missed the rest of the tour. And shortly after that, our guitarist started another band that actually ended up getting really big and signing by Capitol Records, and the band kind of fell apart. And I was finishing my IT degree, and kind of took the professional life as opposed to the musical life.
Yeah. So I guess, what instrument did you play when you were in the band?
Yeah, I played bass. So I played cello when I was in elementary school, and I did still have a cello for a while. But as in the process of moving, I sold it because I just didn't want to move it. But cello and bass was kind of my thing, and so I played bass guitar. And then ironically, I also kind of really felt, I played football and stuff when I was in junior high and high school. And so I still really kind of loved sports. And ironically, I was playing for a club rugby team while I was going to Metro State here in Denver. And at the time, I ended up getting a job at a sports supplement company. And it was there, I was still kind of going through my first couple of years of school, and I just kind of really established a good relationship with the we had an in-house developer, and we had a kind of in-house IT guy that managed all of our network and stuff. And it was really kind of talking with them. And ironically at the time, I was also really into building my own computers anyways. And so I just kind of found this love for technology and learning more about it. And so at the time, to be honest, I guess another bend is that I ended up shifting my majors because I was going to get my bachelor's degree in psychology. I just didn't know what I was really going to do now that the music thing was done. And luckily enough for me, I was in my second year, and I was able to make an easy shift over to information technology. And so I ended up getting a bachelor's degree in information technology.
But you have a law degree.
Yeah.
So how did that is
yeah.
rock band lawyer. How does it play out?
Yeah. Okay. So I had graduated. I'd been working as I left the sports supplement company, and then I went and got my first job as at a software company. And it was there. So here's another bend. It was there that the owner of that company, Nate, a really awesome guy, he introduced me to the world of specialty coffee. So I really kind of fell in love with specialty coffee. I kind of became our in-house barista. So I was like, we had an espresso machine, and every morning people were like, oh, Clint, can you make me a latte this morning? And it was a regular, like it was like a joke. Like Nate was always like he wasn't requiring me of it as his boss because he knew I enjoyed it, but it was like, where's my, every morning he kind of wanted me to make his coffee. So I fell in love with specialty coffee. And so I started looking into, and a good friend of mine owns a specialty coffee company. And so I had started this specialty coffee venture, and I was really interested in learning more about contracting and just the ins and outs of the legal sides of business. And, there's so many different things when you're trying to set an LLC, partnership. I mean, there's just so many legal aspects of business. And so Purdue University has essentially a correspondence program for law. And so I was like, well, I'll just take a couple courses to kind of learn the stuff that I want. And so I was working full time at this software company, and I started going to law school just to kind of educate myself. After I'd finished first year, one of my professors is like, you have really great grades, you're really good. And I was like, all right, am I back? Am I live?
Yeah, you're back. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So, no, it's all good. But the thing is because I wasn't actually at Purdue University in the brick and mortar school, and in most law schools, you can't work full time. And so one way that you're allowed to work full time is that you have to take what they call the first year law student. And so I had to fly. It has like a 7% passing rate. And so that was kind of the bend in the road for me. It was, all right, if I fly to California, if I take this exam and I don't pass, then it was a good learning experience moving on and starting this coffee venture and continuing to work in technology and kind of see where my life goes. Well, I sat, and then I got a letter from the bar examiners like a couple months later, like, congratulations, you passed. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll finish. And ironically, I was also sitting on a board of a nonprofit called Victim Outreach, which is here in Jefferson County, Colorado. And the district attorney, Pete Weir, and his deputy DA, and a lot of his DAs were on the board. And so I was really surrounded by a lot of legal professionals. And the running joke, there's like every month when we had our meeting, it was like, when do you graduate? Because you're going to come work for us, right? And I knew right away, I mean, they were working on some pretty high profile cases, and I knew right away that I had zero interest in working in the criminal side of law. I had no interest in that. And so when I graduated, I ended up landing. The other company I was working with was under process of potentially selling, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And I had these dreams of grandeur, potentially moving to Northern California and working for like Specialized Bike Company because I love endurance sports, and maybe doing corporate law or something like that. And luckily, I say luckily for me, I met Joe Axney, who owns IT Guru, because he introduced me to the veterinary business and just the veterinary industry as a whole. And it has been probably the greatest bend that I could have asked for, because I really love the industry. I love the people. And to this day now, some of my closest friends and my best friends are all in the industry. And if it wasn't for that bend, I wouldn't be here. So I'm incredibly grateful for that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny how it all turns out. Started my career, I wanted to be a veterinarian. I was, one of those, from the time I was 5 years old, I wanted to be a veterinarian. And then when I went to NC State, the vet school was potentially, it would have been built by the time I graduated, undergrad. And they didn't get the school built in time. So what happened was they instead delayed it like 2 years, and then I was out, and because I would have been in the very first class. So by then I didn't want to go back, but my brother went to Cornell to play football. Well, I'm from the South, but I really hate cold weather and snow. So they said, hey, do you want to come up here and go to school and to the vet school at Cornell? I went, no, it's too cold up there. I don't want to go. So I just stayed home, and I started to manage family restaurants. And that's where I got a lot of my business background. I mean, I was running P&Ls by the time I was 15, and was kind of trained like that. But then I still, I love veterinary medicine. I love the profession. And I think, like you said, the people are the best. I mean, they're just the kindest people. They are humble. I mean, we can't lump everything into, all people are all things. But for the majority of them, they're very kind and caring people. And there's not a lot of ego out there in the world like there is in some other professions. And so I still wanted to get into it. And I floated back into it as a part-time receptionist in 1985, and I've been doing it ever since. And so obviously I think it's a great profession to be in. And, I'm glad your curves and your bends brought you into vet medicine.
Yeah, me too.
So now, when did life throw you like the biggest curveball? Because you just started your own company. That's a bend.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And I don't, the thing is, like, I don't know if it's like COVID is a blessing or a curse, because there's so many. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, over the last number of years, I had just seen this problem, right? At IT Guru, we were the red carpet service of IT services that really handled the administrative side of things. My printer's running slow, my computer's old, that sort of stuff. But what I had realized is that one problem that we were up against a lot was that, for us, that costs a premium. And for most vet practices, they have a 20% margin, right? So their margins aren't really that big. And if you have a 20% profit margin, you're actually doing probably pretty well compared to a lot of other practices. Yeah, exactly.
Really well. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I just kept hearing as I was out at conferences or just talking to owners or whatever, like, we love the idea of secure, being secure and stable, but there's just no way we can spend 1.5 to 3% on gross, right? So, I mean, if say you have a 10% profit margin and now you're going to spend 3% of your gross on, IT services, that brings you down to 7%. That's a big hit when you're only, profiting 10%. So I was thinking there's got to be a way to solve this problem, right? I just kind of saw a problem in the market, and it wasn't a solution that we offered at IT Guru. It was like, we're either a right fit or we're not the right fit, right? Mm-hmm. That was kind of always our business model. And we want to know what we do really well, and we want to service those customers really well doing that. And, and so I saw this idea, and I think one of the big pushes for me is that as I was talking to people in the industry and just getting feedback and really just trying to suss out what people thought and getting an idea if it was viable, I had a friend who does a lot of kind of, I guess it's like blind consulting to some degree. Like, people will come to him and say, hey, you're an expert in the industry. We want to get your feedback on this offering. And a insurance company had come to them, and they were looking at just a cybersecurity offering and data protection service for just, would it be viable in the vet space? And so he called me, and he's like, hey, just to let you know, like, somebody else is thinking about this, right? And So it was kind of like, it was kind of from like, you know, for me, it was kind of, I do very much have an entrepreneurial spirit. Like I've had a photography business, I've had a coffee business. I mean, I've kind of done a lot of things. And so it was just kind of one of those deals where this isn't the right fit for the company I'm with. So either I should do it or somebody else is going to. And as I started thinking about making that jump, I got a lot of support from people in the industry and people willing to back me financially to make it happen. And so I made the jump, you know, and took the bend in the road, they say. And yeah, and I guess one, and when I, to kind of circle back to talk about the idea of a blessing or a curse with COVID, you know, with COVID, one thing that has opened the doors there is that, you know, we've seen a 400% increase in cyber attacks since February. So, and I think the industry, you know, the veterinary industry, one reason that I'm really passionate about it is that the thing that I hear from practice owners or managers all the time is that we just don't have data that anybody wants. And so like in my intro, when you're talking about my little bio there, what they don't realize is that they do. They have a lot of data that people want. And the thing is that I hear from practices all the time that have had major cyber attacks that have been very devastating because they weren't prepared. Because again, they have this mindset that nobody wants our data. We're not a target market. I mean, I could talk about why the veterinary industry actually is probably in the top 15 to 20% of potential cyber attacks, and because of their relatedness to the healthcare industry, and how cyber attacks are issued. But yeah, unfortunately, the industry doesn't see it, and my heart really breaks for practices when I hear them getting locked out and being down for weeks on end. And or you know, I spoke with a practice in Dallas where, you know, because a lot of times the big one is ransomware. I mean, that's the big one that you really have to protect yourself. But there's other stuff like there's these things we call botnet attacks, and essentially a hacker takes over your computers on your network to then attack a foreign state. So a practice manager in Dallas, I was talking with him, and he had a couple machines at his practice in their exam rooms that the FBI found out had been taken over by these botnets, and they commandeered 2 exam rooms for a month and a half.
Oh my
while
God.
they watched the traffic, and they wouldn't really tell them. They just know that whoever got a hold of these machines through whatever means they did were attacking a foreign state or trying to attack a U.S. agency here in the States. And so now imagine if you're an AHA accredited practice and you're an average practice, you're doing what, $365,000 per exam room per year. So what kind of financial hit does that have if now you have the FBI sitting in your exam rooms watching traffic over your machine over 2 of your exam rooms in your 3 exam room practice, right? So there are a whole host of things that can happen, and yeah, I just want to be there to help them not have to deal with any of that.
Well, I think that people don't realize what could happen, and you know, I'm a little paranoid, and I'm laughing because I keep thinking about the practices who still have paper charts. And this is why.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, to some degree, yeah.
And it's true. Yep. It's true, but the inefficiency of it is, you know, it's still not worth, you know, the risk. And then there's always the protection that you can put on, you know, this kind of stuff. And I am kind of paranoid for my own personal laptop because I have, you know, page security, and I have cloud storage, and I have actually I have double cloud storage, which is kind of crazy. But anyway.
No, if it was me, we'd have like 5, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I talked to Joe, and I said, "Am I okay? I have like Carbonite, and I have, you know, OneDrive." And he goes, "Yeah, I think you're all right. It's just me working the computer too, so it's not like I have a lot of people in my laptop.
Yeah.
But it's just still, I have 15 years of content built up in this laptop, and you know, I also have it stored in an external drive, so it's there too." But you can't be too safe. You know, you really can't be too safe because it's too time-consuming to have to rebuild it. And I've been in that situation just when the computer crashed, and this is like way back in the 90s. But you know, we had our computers crash near the 4th of July, and our practice boarded about 100 animals, and so we had to hand calculate all the invoices when all those boarders went home. And after when you get a notice on your computer server that says kernel panic, it's not good. learned that.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I learned two things. That's not good. And the other thing is put your server somewhere, if you have a server, that you can get to it easily, because I thought I was being smart, and I put the server on a shelf way up near the ceiling because I didn't want dog hair and I didn't want anybody hitting it. But then I had to replace the motherboard standing on a ladder because it was all wired in. And so I'm and talking on the phone to IDEC.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
And I learned more about computers and like repair than I ever wanted to. So, yeah, pay the man, right? There's an old Andy Griffith show where Aunt V wants to try to get the freezer fixed, and she's hauling meat down to the meat shop and to put it in somebody else's freezer, and Andy is going, Aunt V, pay the man, pay the man.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Pay the
Yeah,
man.
well, what's interesting about that, and I think, if there are any veterinary professionals listening to this, that hopefully it makes sense, is, I had 2 Yorkies, only have 1 now. Unfortunately, lost one earlier this year, but my primary care DVM is always like, clean their teeth, right? Because if you clean their teeth, preventing that periodontal disease has this kind of downstream effect on their overall health.
Absolutely.
And it's a really great. Yeah. And what I had realized over the last few years is that, if we can take a practice and we can really focus on the security aspects of it, it's like that periodontal disease, right? It's like that dental cleaning. So all the gaps and the issues that we're going to see there will help to kind of shore up the overall stability of your practice, which means we're not so much dependent on that administrative IT person anymore, right? We don't necessarily need Joe, Steve, or Susie to come by once a week to fix a printer or fix a computer, because we're kind of aware that this is an aging machine, which creates a security risk. So if we're proactive about replacing that stuff, then it kind of has this downstream effect on your overall IT health. And because I'm primarily focused on security and data protection, I also saw that there's a lot of practices out there, or practice managers, that don't mind spending the 15 to 20 minutes to find the best deal on hardware somewhere, and just kind of need some general guidance. So like, look, just tell me what I can buy, I'll find the best price. And, and so that was kind of also a thing that I saw that really that the industry as a whole kind of wanted, and that we could kind of fill.
Yeah, I think that's extremely helpful. I know that, there's, and of course, when I was buying a laptop, I reached out to you guys and said, like, what do I need?
Mm-hmm.
And just talked to some Vet Partners members I just needed somebody to understand how much I traveled around and how much wear and tear my laptop was going to get. And the last one I bought was one that was built for the Army in Desert Storm. And
wow.
It's really, metal case. I got such a deal on this computer, and it lasted and lasted. In fact, it's still there. I'm just so worried that the lid is going to come off of it because I've hinged and unhinged it so many times.
Oh, yeah.
So I use it as another computer that sits over there when I'm trying to build PowerPoint presentations. So what was the greatest challenge, I guess, when you were really deciding to start this company? You could have gone to work for anybody in IT, but what was that decision-making process?
I think the hardest thing was that I wanted to stay in the vet space. Like I said, some of my greatest friends and colleagues are in this industry, and I knew that I wanted to stay in that space. And I think I already had and I had an idea. I had tested the viability. I'm still, even to this day, doing some work with the help of the Veterinary Entrepreneurship Academy to kind of help further refine what the industry really is looking for. So I think that will always ever grow and change. So I kind of had the foundation. It was really just, I think like most business owners will tell you, anytime you take a venture, and in this case, it was fully leaving IT Guru, a company that I loved and I truly cared for. I loved my staff. I loved everybody there. And that was the hardest thing. So knowing that there's this new idea I believed in, I think the industry will back, and that there's a lot of support for, but the unknown, right? And then just the belief in yourself that you can really do it and make it happen. And again, just coming back to the industry as a whole, I can't thank like people like yourself and everybody else that has called and just showed overwhelming support that has really helped in those highs and lows, you know, and that has been the biggest struggle. Sometimes it's, you know, getting out of your own way that is the hardest thing to do.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, it is a leap of faith. And when I started my consulting business, of course, it's 2008. It's in the middle of the Great Recession. And, you know, my husband looked at me and he said, look, you have always wanted to do this. You've been doing it on the side for 5 years. Just do it. And I went, all right, you know. And so I think it's just, you have to just start, and you don't really know where to start a lot of times. Of course, you'd already started one business, so you kind of had a better idea about the structure of it. But and I grew up in business, so it wasn't completely foreign to me, but still it is building your tools, it's building your services, it's building your offerings, and then getting it out there to people who either will or tell other people about you or engage you in your services. So, you know, we met through networking, we met through Vet Partners Association. So how do you think that networking has really played a role in you building this company and getting it off the ground and, you know, getting it going?
Oh, it has been nothing but short of amazing. You know, I've had this conversation with my wife. I'm not sure if this, I guess it's a little about me, but to give a little background, I don't have a great relationship with my parents. And in fact, I haven't spoken to my parents in almost 10 years, to be completely honest. But there's one thing that my dad, you know, always said to me when I was younger, and he was like, you know, it's not necessarily who you know, it's not necessarily what you know, it's who you know, right? And this was, for him, this was in the context of, you know, he was a master plumber. My dad just has some people problems, right? My dad's just not a good people person. And so for him, he always felt that it was like, because he wasn't buddy with everybody, he wasn't getting the work, and he was having a harder time. And so that was the context that he put it in. But for me, what I realized is that there is some truth in that statement. But I think I gave you some recognition for this the other day, is that I realized that really where I'm the best and where I succeed the most is if I can give back more than what I receive, you know, and if I can find ways to help other people be successful and achieve their dreams. And that was one of the really hard things, complete squirrel moment here, about leaving IT Guru, is because that was something that I was really kind of driven to, is really helping our staff figure out what drove them. How do I help them be successful? How can I support them achieve their dreams, right? And now as I look at this as a business owner, it's kind of the same thing, you know, and I have really found that if you do put yourself out there and you're honest and you're truthful about the fact that you do want to help somebody else in whatever capacity you can, people are willing to return the favor and help you in return. And there's this community aspect to it. So it's not necessarily just like from my father's perspective, where it's like the good old boys club is only going to stick with the good old boys club. It's no, you have to learn that it's not just about you. And if you can make it about other people and be truthful about that and really want to help other people, and even though maybe your success isn't there yet, and relish, I don't know if relish is the right word, but kind of celebrate other people's accomplishments with them and help them get there, that they will be willing to do the same for you. And people really can be great. And so, I mean, it has been fantastic. Some of the people that have been most supportive of me, I mean, yesterday I had a phone conversation with the CEO of the AVMA Trust, and we're talking about a potential partnership. And that phone call would have happened if it wasn't for somebody in my network that I was talking to and just trying to see like, hey, I'm doing this. How can I help you? How, you know, rising tides rise all ships. So how can we help each other, you know, help everybody, and then hopefully better the industry as a whole, right? So, you know, we support the industry, but so how can we also help the industry as a whole?
And I love your philosophy there, because one of the things I've always firmly believed in is like supporting your staff and helping them grow. And I mean, I've actually had veterinarians say, you know, I don't want to train my team because if I train them too much, they'll want more money or they'll just leave. And my philosophy is I would rather have somebody wonderful for a year than somebody horrible for 10. And looking back on my career and the people that I've hired, and, you know, they just started out working in the kennels and worked their way up to assistants and technicians, but 9 of those went on to become veterinarians and practice owners. And so I looked at that and I went, okay, so they saw a model of a well-run practice with a really solid team and a good culture, and they went out fearlessly with that model and built it for themselves. And so that just exponential growth of good stuff sort of happens out there in the world. And I've always believed to look after your people and they'll look after your customers. And so right now, of course, we're having a challenge looking after our people and our customers because we're so busy in the veterinary profession that our people are exhausted and our customers are getting agitated because we can't get them all in a timely manner just because there's just too much. There's just too much going on. But technology can solve some of that stuff too. So I'm a believer in using technology to help be efficient in our workflows and stuff. So if you were going to give an advice to somebody who was thinking about making a career move, because that is really the reason behind this entire podcast, is the fact that I know that there are a lot of people out there in the profession or just in any profession who are working in toxic environments who are just afraid to take the leap out because there's comfort in the usual. There's comfort, and we don't like change. And you and I both, we've talked about this, and I know that you also understand, like, there's philosophy behind this, and you didn't you tell me you studied like in a Buddhist temple for a while? You have the most interesting background of all the people I know in this world. But yeah, there's just this philosophy that, you know, I think the energy you put out in the world is the energy you get back, and that, you know, people they live in fear. I mean, and right now, COVID, and there's some people who are just terrified of this, and I think it's okay to be wise, but, you know, fear, I love this quote. It actually came from like this movie, Will Smith movie, that says, fear isn't real, danger is real. But fear is something we make up in our head, and we can also tell ourselves an exaggerated story. So I think a lot of times we tell ourselves this false story that we can't leave, we can't change, we can't do, rather than just saying, you know what, the worst that can happen is if I fail, and then I'll figure it out. You know, I'll learn from that failure. So what advice would you give to people who are trying to make that decision to make that move?
Yeah, I don't know, mate, you mentioned my love of theology, and I think that has played a big role in it, and I think the direction that I'm pushing today. I spent, I think, like 3 or 5 years at a Tibetan Buddhist monastery going through the teacher training program there, and I was really fascinated with that. And then my spiritual life took a whole nother direction, and I got really fascinated and kind of driven by the Judeo-Christian, I don't like to use the term religion because that puts me in a pigeonhole, but I got really fascinated by that, and I've spoken at a couple churches and stuff about different theological and apologetics kind of topics and stuff like that. But I think what's important there is if you look at it from, like, say, a Buddhist perspective, kind of to what we were talking about earlier, is this idea of becoming a bodhisattva is what it's called, and it's where you will really, you'll be the kind of that one rung down from really achieving enlightenment when you are of absolute service to others, and you will find complete joy and happiness and almost be able to detach yourself from the elements of suffering and allow suffering to kind of come and pass naturally, rather than into holding on to that suffering and making it worse than it really is, because you're always being in the service of others and dedicated to helping other people. And I think, you know, like, if we look at it, you know, if you're into the Judeo-Christian side of things, you know, if you're Jewish or you're Christian, or even Muslims, because Muslims believe in the Injil, which would be the New Testament or the Jewish and Christian Bible, is that there's this idea that we always chase after idols, right? And this idea of idol worship, and how there's no satisfaction in that. And, you know, there's a lot of tenements and things like, I'm currently rereading the book of Isaiah right now. And as you're reading through chapters 40 through, I'm almost the culmination of chapter 53. And really it's all about how believing in something. In this case, it's more about really putting your faith in God and leading into the power that is God to really hold you onto something rather than idol worship. And where I'm getting with that point is that a lot of people, they make the jump and it's purely about this idol worship of money, right? And that I think there's nothing wrong with wanting to build a big successful company. I want to build a $10 million company, but the aspects of having $10 million a year in revenue is not the aspect of having $10 million a year in revenue. The reason that revenue is important is because I want to be able to hire a staff and give them an amazing place to work. And that has always been a dream of mine. So that money is a means to a different end, right? And also to do something that you really passion is kind of sometimes a hard word because you can be passionate about something but not necessarily good at it. There's this 2,000-year-old Japanese concept called the ikigai concept, and it's kind of finding where all these different things overlie, and that's kind of really your meaning or purpose in life. So really also, if you're going to make that jump, make sure that it's really your purpose in life. And for me, that was just the underlying fact that the people in this industry are so amazing, and I really kind of want to be like their big brother and protect them. And I really wholeheartedly believe that. And I see and hear every day, unfortunately, of them getting picked on and attacked when when really they aren't a big business. Maybe their practice is doing $1.5–2 million a year in revenue, which is great. I mean, don't get me wrong, that's not a small accomplishment, but you're not the Garmins of the world. They have $10 million that they could fork over. So really, don't make it about something. Don't make it about an idol. Find a way to be of service of others, of something that really is your purpose in life, or for lack of a better term, your passion in life, things that you really like. And I think that will help you through the lows and the highs, because there are low points where you're going to question, can I do this? Is it possible? But if you attach yourself to a purpose and not a business or a specific idea, then you'll be successful.
You made me think of something that just occurred, and I thought I had printed it out, and I do have it somewhere, but my desk is a wreck. But it's the Association of Businesses, and I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's like all the Fortune 500, 1,000 companies, all are part of this association, and they recently restructured what the purpose of a business is. And prior to that, it was basically they're responsible to their shareholders, and these are publicly traded companies. And so they were responsible to their shareholders to be profitable. But then now they have changed their philosophy and said, first of all, we are going to be responsible to our community, and that community, including our employees, to first look after them, because then that makes us a company that can then look after the community and then will be profitable to our shareholders. So I think that's such a huge shift in the business philosophy of big companies, because if all you are is driven to quarterly reports, you're going to cut corners. You're not going to make long-term strategic decisions that are good for the world in general. It's just going to be for that next 3 months. And so strategic planning for long-term development, which is, of course, been Costco's entire business philosophy always, is I'm going to pay my people well, and then the last people that get paid are the shareholders, but it's okay, because let's take care of these people first. And I think the CEO of that company has really set a model that showed other businesses like that, this is the point, right? This is the point. Good for you for wanting to build that company. And that's really such a great part of what I do. I just want veterinarians to have a good life. And I know how to do it, and I know that it's possible with systems that are put into place, and control and organization, and also just some good communication skills. And in fact, people ask me, what do you do for a living? And I teach animal people how to successfully communicate with humans. And that's what I do.
That's amazing. That's so amazing. That's a great line.
Yeah. So, it is, but it's so important. I'm looking at all these anxious moments that we're having right now in veterinary medicine, where people are upset with us about not being able to get in, or they don't want to wear a mask, they want to come in the building. I understand all that, But if we were better at communicating, like pushing information out and prepping people rather than surprising them when they walk up with all these things, then we would not be getting fussed at so much. So this is one of my goals here. I've just written a curbside protocol I'm getting ready to put out into the world. And I just launched yesterday a template for a letter that you can send out to your clients that explains to them what's going on the other side of the exam table in the building, so that they're prepared and that they're also supportive. So I wrote that letter and I sent it out to my current clients, and one of them sent it out to her entire database, and she called me up and she said, Debbie, you wouldn't believe what happened. She said, we sent this out, and this letter explains that, that we're being verbally attacked, and on occasion the profession is being physically attacked by clients. And she said, we got so many calls and thank yous and food. She said it was like Christmas on steroids. It was
That's amazing.
But it was such a morale boost for people who are working that hard. So I hope that it goes out and that people use this templated letter to send it out to clients, because I do believe that 99% of our clients are wonderful and supportive and love us and believe we walk on water. And then we remember the 0.1% that is just a total pain and really difficult and very narcissistic and self-centered. So even then, maybe we could seed kindness before they walk into our doors, and maybe it'll do some good. Well, Clint, any final words of wisdom that you would like to share with people who are, struggling with their bend in the road?
Yeah, I mean, I think listening to you talk there made me think of a couple of things, and which again, I don't know if this is an admission that maybe I was having other thoughts while you're thinking, because one thing I always try to really practice on is be a good listener, and it's like, it's my mind running here. But, you were talking about this idea, we talk about this idea of communication, and then at the end there, you're talking about, like 98% of our customers are great, and only, there's the 1% that aren't good. And Gary Vaynerchuk, if people don't know who he is, he's a big business guy and really big in marketing and all that stuff. Great person to follow. But he posted this video the other day on LinkedIn that was this chimpanzee was sitting next to a little pond, and he was picking up a handful of fish food, and he was dropping it in the pond and watching all the fish come up and eat. And he was talking about how this is how your communication on, because he's a big social media marketing guy. And he's like, this is how your communication on social media should look. And I think a lot of people don't understand, like if you read through the comments, like, what are you talking about? What he's talking about is that the chimpanzee selfishly was feeding the other fish, right? He wasn't feeding the fish to catch them. He wasn't feeding the fish. He was simply feeding the fish to feed the fish, right? And so don't have, and I think the importance, I think there's two aspects there. So your communication, again, if you're really passionate about an idea, don't be afraid to educate, and have your don't make it about you, right? Really try to be humble. The more humble you can be, and the more dedicated you can be to helping other people, and not making it about you and what you're doing, the better off you'll be. And then I think the other piece of that is, when you talk about the 98% and the 1%, is just don't have a business scarcity mentality. There what, in the US, there are 30,000 vet practices. There's no way I could service all 30,000 of those vet practices. So think about that, right? If somebody, I think, and what also made me, as I was listening to you, and one thing that I really appreciate about you is Josh Weissman is a great friend of mine, and we've had this conversation where you guys are kind of in the same lane, doing the same thing, but yet I see you guys talking a lot and sharing ideas and communicating, and I think it's just a great, really great example of a non-scarcity mentality, and how really you can have somebody else who maybe is in the same space or the same lane, but you may have a customer that's not right for you, but the best thing you could do for that person is say, you know what, I know somebody else who does what I do, and they're probably a better fit for you. And I think, so that's the other thing. I've been in business with so many people who have this scarcity mentality, that they could be the only ones doing that one thing. And that's just only going to hurt you in the long run, than it is, because again, you're making it all about you. So yeah, just realize that there's plenty of fish in the sea, and be happy to feed those fish, and things will be a lot better.
Yeah. And pick the fish you want to feed, right? That's the
exactly,
other thing
yes.
too, is really understanding your market and your niche. I tell a story that people think I'm insane, but when I was managing practice, we had a boarding facility that would board, as I said earlier, about 100 animals. And of course, it filled up because we had 4,000 active clients. So you got, do the numbers, right? And Christmas, Thanksgiving, all the holidays, and we would have a waiting list. And so people would call up and go, like a week before, I need to board my dog. Like, you know what, we're full, but let me put you on the waiting list in case we have a cancellation. But here are 3 kennels that we know would look after your pet well, and we recommend those kennels. Here's their phone numbers, give them a call. And people look at me and go, are you insane? Because they will just go and stay with this other boarding kennel. I said, well, they will or they won't. But my job here is to care for their pet, not just when it makes me money, but all the time. And I also had a list of boarding kennels that I knew were, medicating animals with other people's medications, who had actually blinded a dog, who were neglectful and filthy in their boarding facility. And that list I also had and said, and stay home if you can't find any place other than this. Do not put your pet there. So my obligation to look after those animals, no matter what, made people understand that I wasn't there just to make money off them. I was there to look after them, period. And if I did make money off them, great. But when I did, they did not question my authenticity or trust, because I had proven myself willing to give business away to another boarding kennel. And then, of course, those boarding kennels that we referred to, in retrospect, turned right around and said, hey, you're unattached to a veterinary hospital. Well, let me send you over here, because these are people we trust. And so there was a great reciprocity there, because there was mutual trust between us and the boarding kennels or the trainers or whoever it was that we felt comfortable referring to. So you don't need it all. You just need the right one. And there are going to be people who are right for your business and people who are not right for your business, and that's okay. And if you market appropriately, you weed them out before they even walk in your door.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, Clint, I don't want to take up any more of your valuable time. You got a business to run, right? You're starting a business.
Yeah, exactly. Trying. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's right.
So,
7 to midnight every day.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're also in a time zone difference too. So thank you for getting up early. First, you probably start your day much earlier than I do. I'm a night owl, so I work till midnight, and I don't like to get up early. Yeah. But tell us about your company and how people can reach out and get in touch with you, and what's the best way.
Yeah, so my company's called Lucca Veterinary Data Security. You could go to Lucca, LUCCA.vet, and know that the name wasn't named after my own dog. There's a 3-legged German Shepherd, or Belgian Malinois mix, I should say. That's my logo, and that really is to pay homage to a really amazing service animal that I think kind of really embodied everything I wanted the company to be. And yeah, so if you're interested, I'd be more than happy to tell you that story. But yeah, so Lucca.vet, you can go there, fill out the form, contact form. I'd be more than happy to help you in any way I can and see if we can't keep you safe. Yep,
sounds good. So you tell us the story about Lucca, because I really wanted to get to that and I forgot to ask you about it. Great story.
Yeah, so I have a good friend and colleague of mine works with veterinary military animals, and she knows I have Yorkies, and so she had sent me this article about these 2 Yorkies in World War I and World War II that were like parachuting behind enemy lines, and she's like, they're not just purse dogs. And I was like, yeah, see, I told you, Yorkies are awesome. And there was this article down below, and so I clicked on the article, and it was about this dog Lucca, and her job was to lead the Marines into new territory. And so on her last tour of duty, she was leading the Marines, and she had found an ID. So she had sniffed it out, and the Marines then would come up and they would disarm it. Well, once they got there, her job was to charge ahead, and she had found another ID. But unfortunately, before the Marines could get there to disarm it, the bomb went off and she took the brunt of the impact. Now, luckily for her, the Veterinary Corps of Engineers was there. They airlifted her out. Even though she took the brunt of the attack, she only lost 1 limb. At that point, she was discharged. But when I listened to that story and I thought about the nature of technology and cybersecurity and data protection, it really embodied everything I wanted this company to be. And there's a couple aspects to that. I saw that Lucca, she really provided a clear guided path through an unknown landscape, right? These Marines didn't know where they were. They needed somebody to really guide them and help keep them safe. And then she found those hidden attacks that they wouldn't have found otherwise, right? So without Lucca, they wouldn't have known that they were about to step into a trap. And so that's kind of what I wanted to do. I wanted to help practices find those threats that they maybe are about to step in, and hopefully help them disarm them before they go off, but to be there if something were to go off to help take the brunt of that impact to keep you safe. A couple interesting facts about Lucca and all the tours of duty she did. Over 400 tours, she never lost a single soldier to injury or anything like that. And again, it just comes back to the amazing things that animals do in our lives. And as a person who's a dog owner and a dog lover, yeah, I mean, it just culminates so many important aspects of my life and things that are important that I was like, this is what I need to name my company after.
Yeah, well chosen name. I agree. Well chosen name. Well, Clint, thank you so much, and thank you for your insights.
Thank you, Debbie. Yes.
I appreciate you being on the bend, and for all those who've listened to you, I hope you got some inspiration and some good ideas about how to navigate your own personal bend. And we'll be back later on and share some more great insights with some more very cool people out there in the world. Thanks so much, Clint. Have a great day.
Thank you, Debbie.